Hello to all friends. In the previous session, we managed to establish communication between a LS brand inverter and a HITEK HMI using the Modbus RTU protocol over the RS-485 network. We were able to send the desired values to the inverter and also read some values from it. Well, in this session, we want to do this using the Modbus TCP protocol over the Ethernet network and connect the HITEK HMI to the LS7 model inverter via Modbus TCP. Let's continue with this video and do this together. The first thing we need to do in order to connect the HITEK HMI to another device via the Ethernet port is to go and define that port. We need to configure the settings related to that port. Before we do those settings, we have to assign an IP address to our HMI. You can either go through the Setup menu, select the HMI setting option here, choose an IP address for your HMI, set it, and then click Confirm. Here, I have set the IP address for our HMI. 192.168.15.90 is the IP, the subnet mask is like this, and the gateway is 192.168.15.1. I click Confirm. You can do this either this way, meaning through the software. Or, when the HMI turns on, you can place one of your fingers on a spot on the HMI screen to go to the HMI's own settings. There, in the Network section, set up the Ethernet port settings and configure your desired IP address there. So here, in the Menu tab, in the Setup tab, in HMI Settings, I set my IP 192.168.15.90. Alright, that's my IP. But I also need to make some settings on the device I want to connect to. The device I want to connect to is an IS7 inverter from LS brand. So, here I chose an IP for my HMI, which I set as 192.168.15.90. I need to set an IP for my PC as well, because I want to upload the program to the HMI through the Ethernet port. So, the net ID of my system, meaning my PC or laptop, needs to be the same as my HMI. So, I set the PC's IP to 192.168.15.10, and I set the inverter's IP to 192.168.15.91. But where do you set the IP for the i7 device? If you install the Modbus TCP option card on the equipment, connect the option card to the equipment. Connect it to the inverter. A new group will open up for you. Some parameters will be added in the COM group where you can set the device's IP. For example, the inverter's IP is set in the COM10 and COM11 parameters, and you need to enter this address in hexadecimal format. That means for 192.168.15.91, you should enter 2 of the numbers in COM10 and the other 2 in COM11, all in hexadecimal format. Your subnet mask should be set in the COM12 and COM13 parameters, and the gateway address should be set in the COM14 and COM15 parameters. All addresses must be entered into the inverter in hexadecimal format. But I want both the frequency setting and the start/stop control on the inverter to be done through the network. To do this, I need to set my frequency reference source, which is DRV07, to field bus, and also set my command source, which is DRV06, to field bus as well. So these are the settings we need to do before we start writing our program and upload it to the HMI. Things like the IP of the PC, the IP of our HMI, the IP of our inverter, and some settings that need to be done directly on the IS7 inverter itself. Alright, now I'm going back to the program. To save time, I've already created and designed a page myself, so we can just enter our addresses here and define our Ethernet port. In order to use the Ethernet of the HITEK HMI, I need to go to the Setup tab and enter Communication Setting, then Local Connection. We learned in previous sessions that we could configure COM1, COM2, and COM3 from here. Now I want to use Ethernet, so I'll go to the Ethernet section. I click on the Add option and a page opens up for me. It asks, which protocol or device do you want to connect with? Well, if I choose the LS brand, I can only connect with LS brand PLCs. So for my purpose, I'll go to the Modbus protocol and select Modbus over TCP IP. For the device type, I'll choose Modbus TCP hex. I select this option. Here, you need to enter the IP address of the device you want to connect to. Now, this equipment could be a PLC, an inverter, or anything else that supports Ethernet networking or the Modbus TCP protocol. The address I assigned to the inverter, the IP I set for the inverter, is 192.168.15.91. So I enter it here. 192.168.15.91. So here, I selected my protocol and said I want to connect to the inverter via Modbus TCP hex. I want to connect through the internet network and my device's IP. My inverter's IP is 192.168.15.91, so I confirm this. Alright, here we were able to configure our Ethernet port and let this HMI know which device and which IP it should communicate with. I click OK. So here, I've placed a forward. There's a forward button, a stop button, a reverse button, and here is the inverter status. It shows the status of the inverter, indicating what mode the inverter is currently in, whether it's in forward, stop, or reverse mode, and here it sends the frequency value to the inverter. Alright, I'll click on this. It's a switch. I select the World option. In the previous section, in the last video, we mentioned that the address for start/stop in L-series inverters. That address is 6006, but in the previous session, since we were doing this through Modbus RTU, we subtracted 1 from the address. In some devices, you need to subtract 1 from the address, while in others, there's no need to adjust the address. You'll need to test this yourself. Alright, here I'll set up a constant. As we said, to perform the forward operation, we need to send the value 2 to the inverter's address 6 in hex. So here, I'll set the value to 2 and select my device here. Modbus TCP hex. We said that if we want to write, we select 4. If we want to read, we select 3. Here, I want to write a value to an address. So I select 4. My address is 6, and I click OK. That's how you set the forward switch. For stop, we said the value should be set to 1. Alright, I set this to setup constant. Write the value 1 to the device that I've connected to via Modbus TCP. To which address? Address 6. OK. For reverse, we said its value should be 4. Address 6. Setup constant, value 4. To which address? To address 6. So now I've defined my forward, stop, and reverse switches. Alright, now I'll go to the frequency comment. My device is the same equipment I'm communicating with via Modbus TCP. Do a 4x right. To which address? Address 5. The address for frequency setting via Modbus networks is address 5. But in a Modbus RTU network, where we connect to other equipment through RS485, we might need to subtract 1 from this address. Now, it depends on the device we're communicating with. Alright, here I'll hit OK, but for my statuses, I'll say my device is Modbus TCP. So I'm saying, if bit 1, 2 to the power of 1, which is 2, if bit 1 of address 6 is activated, is turned on. You should detect that my forward command is active and the inverter is in forward mode. Okay. For stop, I'll say Modbus TCP if my bit 0 is activated. If bit 0 of address 6 is activated, you should detect that the inverter is in stop mode. I'll say OK. For reverse, also detect the second bit. With Modbus TCP, if the second bit of my address 6, my hex address 6, is activated, you should detect that the inverter is in reverse mode and turn on the indicator light. I was able to write my program here. Now I want to upload the program into the HMI. I click on the download option. Here, I don't want to upload the program to the HMI via the USB port anymore, because I'm using the HMI's Ethernet port. It's easier to upload the program to the HMI using the same Ethernet port. Alright, let's wait for the page to open. So here, I won't select the USB option anymore. I select the Ethernet option. So, what was the IP I set for the HMI? 192.168.15.90. Where did I set it? In the HMI setup settings. Here, I set the HMI's IP address, 192.168.15.90. I click on Download. I wait for the program I wrote to be transferred into the HMI. Alright, now I've loaded the program into the HMI. Let's go to the equipment and test the program together. As you can see, I've loaded the program that was written into the HMI. Now I should be able to send both the right rotation command, the left rotation command, the stop command, and the frequency value to the inverter. Alright, now I'm going to set, for example, 20 Hz on the inverter. You can see here that the inverter's frequency has changed to 20. Now I want to issue the forward command. I press the forward button. You can see that the inverter starts up in the forward direction. You can also observe the status of the inverter. In the forward direction, the indicator light for forward, meaning my inverter's status light, has also turned on here. I'm going to stop the inverter. You can see that the inverter stops, goes into stop mode, and the stop signal indicator light also turns on. Now I'm going to press the reverse command. The inverter starts up in the reverse direction, and the signal light for reverse turns on. So, we were able to connect the HITEK HMI to the LS7 inverter via the Modbus TCP network over Ethernet. We can send forward and reverse commands, change the frequency value, and also monitor the inverter status. So, in this video, we learned how to configure the Ethernet port of the HITEK HMI. We learned how to set the HMI's IP address, how to handle addressing, and we were also able to communicate with an LS7 inverter and send the desired values to the inverter.